I'm Mr. Ramsey, saving Western civilization, one student at a time.
In our last lecture, we discussed how Neville Chamberlain had bowed down to Hitler by giving him the Sudetenland in Germany. And once that happens, Hitler promised that he doesn't want any more territory after that. But he forgoes that promise, and then in March of 1939, Hitler marches his troops into Czechoslovakia, taking the whole place. Okay, even though he agreed with Neville Chamberlain and Edward Dowler there of France that he wouldn't do that. So he takes control of all of Czechoslovakia. The eastern part, Slovakia, becomes a German puppet state, and the Czech part becomes part of the Reich. Okay, once he does that, then he forces Lithuania to give up German-speaking city of Memel. Okay, and this is all for the idea of self-determination. And then he starts to turn his attention to Poland because Danzig and the Polish corridor are controlled by Poland. Well, Danzig's a free city, but the Polish corridor is in Poland, and so he's pushing to control that because there's Germans living both in Danzig and in the Polish corridor, which is the east region of East Prussia. Back when Bismarck had united, well, actually it goes further than that, but East Prussia was part of the German Empire, and he, under self-determination, Germans should live in Germany, and so he's advocating that. Now, the British and the French response to that is that they promised to help Poland to defend its borders if Germany attacks Poland. Okay? And both the British and the French tried to persuade Poland to ask for aid from the Soviet Union. And the Polish Marshal responded, his name was Siegmund Ritz, to the French ambassador, with the Germans, we risk our liberty. With the Russians, we lose our soul. And he was right, because once Hitler takes over Poland, he's going to split it between him and the Soviet Union. Chamberlain himself, the Prime Minister of the British, had reservations for asking Stalin's help, the Soviet Union. Stalin is the leader of the Soviet Union. He asked the Soviets to join the British and the French as an alliance to contain Germany. But Stalin agreed on the condition that if the Western powers acknowledge the Soviet right to occupy a broad zone stretching from Finland to Bulgaria. And Chamberlain refused his request. That's why the Polish Marshal said what he said. So Chamberlain refused Stalin's request, and so Stalin, in return, rebuffed the West. All right? So Stalin believed that Hitler was going to eventually turn his attention to the Soviet Union with his Lebensraum. So because he doubted the West was actually going to go to war with Germany, he started setting up agreements with Germany. And they began secret talks. All right? And the foreign minister Molotov, who's the Soviet minister, and Ribbentrop, which we've introduced before, he was the foreign ambassador to the British before he was the foreign minister to Germany. They set up talks, and on August 23rd, 1939, the Soviet Union and Germany, to the shock of the whole world, signed a Nazi-Soviet non-aggression pact. It's called the Molotov-Ribbentrop non-aggression pact. And according to this agreement, Germany and the Soviet Union pledged that they would never attack each other, and each would remain neutral if the other became involved in a war. But the secret agreement was that they would divide Eastern Europe between themselves. Germany would occupy the western part of Poland, while the Soviet Union would govern the eastern section. This threw the Western leaders into total chaos because they were not expecting that. Once Hitler was convinced that the West would do nothing. He declared war on Poland September 1st, 1939. Okay, and then 2 days later, after Hitler's invasion of Poland, World War II starts, where the British and the French declare war on Germany. Now, rumor has it, or historians differ on this, but before he invaded Poland, Hitler is attributed to saying this quote: Genghis Khan led millions of women and children to slaughter, with premeditation and a happy heart. History sees him solely the founder of a state. It's a matter of indifference to me what a weak Western European civilization will say about me. I have issued the command, and I'll have anybody who utters but one word of criticism executed by a firing squad. That our war aim does not consist in reaching certain lines, but in the physical destruction of the enemy. Accordingly, I have placed my death, head formation readiness for the present only in the east, with orders to them to send to death mercilessly and without compassion men, women, and children of Polish deviation and language. Only thus shall we gain the living space, Lebensraum, which we need, who, after all, speaks today of the annihilation of the Armenians. And the Armenians were Christians in the Ottoman Empire who were murdered, 1 million of them, during World War I. So on September 1st, 1939, the German Luftwaffe roared towards its targets in Poland. Okay? And at the same time, the panzers, which we call the tank divisions, swept across Poland. Okay? This was known as Blitzkrieg, or Lightning War, a new German strategy aimed at taking the enemy by surprise. And the reason why they did that is because they're trying to override the old war, the First World War, in its trench warfare. Okay, so they're testing that out. Blitzkrieg is supposed to surround an enemy and then pass them so there's no trenches developed. Okay? When Germany takes half of Poland, the Soviets move into Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia. They forced them to accept Soviet military bases. And they did the same thing to Finland. But the Finns actually hold out in the Winter War of 1939 to 1940 under this guy named Carl Gustaf Mannerheim, who, by the way, defeated the Soviet Union not once, but twice. And he held the Finns to that. So as Hitler has taken over half of Poland, the Soviet Union takes over the other half of Poland, takes over Estonia, takes over Latvia, takes over Lithuania, and then tries to take over Finland. But the British and the French only declare war on Germany. So once Hitler secured the East, he turned his attention to the West. And so he made plans to invade the West to end the war of the West. Okay, and what this war was called at first was called the Sitzkrieg, or the phony war, because there's nothing going on in the West. Even though the British and the French had declared war on the Germans, nothing happened, and so that's why it's called the Sitzkrieg, or the phony war. All right, but in April of 1940, he caught the British surprised. Okay, and so Hitler invaded Denmark, and then he parachuted his troops into Norway. And the reason why he takes both Denmark and Norway is because he doesn't want his navy to be blockaded again like in the First World War. Okay, so he takes over Denmark and Norway in April 1940, and then he invades. Plans his invade on France. The French's defense was this place called the Maginot Line. Okay, and so they secured the Maginot Line, and Hitler's offensive was to go around it, just like in World War I, to go around the border of the French and the German, around the marginal line, or around the French and German border, go around, sweep it into the Netherlands and Belgium, and to keep them surprised. And he's going to go through the Ardennes forest. Okay, so he takes out Luxembourg. This is Hitler in the German forces. He takes out Luxembourg, the Netherlands, and Belgium. And this starts on May 10th, 1940, when Winston Churchill was called to become the prime minister. And the Panzers, this is called Blitzkrieg, they sweep into those countries. And they encircle the French and the British, okay? And as the Panzers divisions drive into Luxembourg, cutting them off, okay? And they trap most of the British and the French at a place called Dunkirk. And so it was a total disaster. And Hitler could have actually annihilated the British force at Dunkirk, but he waited. And while he's waiting, the British civilians actually take their boats from England and they sail to Dunkirk to save the men. And by the time Hitler realized it was too late, they used this is on May 26th, they roughly used 150 vessels to do the evacuation at Dunkirk. So, by June 14th, though, Germany signs an armistice with Germany, and they actually sign in the same railroad car as that the Treaty of Versailles was signed in. When France signed that armistice, the Germans were allowed to occupy all north of France and all Atlantic coast to the Spanish border. And in southern France, Hitler had set up a puppet government known as Vichy France. Okay? And it was put under Marshal Henri Pétain. And Pétain was a World War I hero from the Battle of Verdun. And he was looked up to. And so Hitler put him as the puppet person over Vichy France, which divides France into two groups. One that's going to be loyal to the Vichy government, and one is going to be loyal to the French resistance movement, or Free France, where this guy named Charles de Gaulle is going to be stationed in England, or Britain, while he's running the Free French people. So you have a division. And then Hitler turns his eyes to England, and the Battle of Britain commences. So from August 24th to September 6th of 1940, Goering is the head of the Luftwaffe, the German Air Force. Goering's going to send over 1,000 German planes a day to bomb England, to knock out their Air Force, okay? And what Winston Churchill does is he sends a bomb run to Berlin, and he bombs Berlin, and so then Hitler switches his attack from taking out planes to actually bombing London for 57 consecutive nights, and that's called the Great Blitz. Okay, during the Blitzkrieg, or the Battle of Britain, if you will, that lasted from August 24th to September 6th. The RAF, which is the British Air Force, the Royal Air Force, shoots down over 1,700 planes, which is double what the Germans think. And so basically, the reason why Germany was bombing the British was because of the fact that they're trying to prepare for an invasion of Britain. But that invasion, Operation Sea Lion, never happens because the British win the Battle of Britain. And the reason why they win is because they have this new technological device called radar. And so they know, even though the Germans don't know this, the British know when the German planes are coming. So they get to their planes right before the Germans can arrive to the island. This is what Winston Churchill had to say about those who fought against the Nazis' Air Force and the Luftwaffe, about the Royal Air Force.
Are turning the tide of the world war by their prowess and by their devotion. Never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few.
So it's because of the Royal Air Force that England can stay in the war. And because of that, it gives hope for the rest of the world. Until next time, we'll talk about the fatal flaw of the Soviet invasion by Hitler. Hope you enjoyed.
I can't pretend to be a great celebrity, but still I'm quite important in my way. The job I have to do may not sound much to you, but all the same I'm very proud to say I'm the girl that makes the thing that thrills the whole